Hi, this video we're going to talk about fish migration from the pre-spawn to the spawning phase. So we're talking probably 55 degrees into the upper 60s to even 70 degrees. So now as I zoom in to this lake, this is a pretty good sized lake, and if you watched the previous video, I talked about how the north part of the lake is going to warm up faster and the south part is going to warm up slower. But I'm going to just zoom in onto one finger or arm and talk about it. So in the last video we talked about the fish staging. Now the fish are going to start moving back into the spawning areas. And you can pretty much guarantee there's going to be some fish spawning in almost every single one of these fingers, every one of these coves, depending on the texture of the bottom and other situations, like if there's a lot of docks and human activity and whatnot, certain fingers or coves may be more attractive to bass than others, and that you're just going to have to figure out on your own. But all these fish now that the water's moving through that mid 50 into the 60 range, now they're no longer staging and they're actually moving shallower to start thinking about making beds. So let's just go into this arm right here. So what's going to happen is these fish are going to follow migration routes from the points. This is an old road bed right here. Road beds are key migration highways, basically. Other things to look for: near points, look for trees or stumps that are starting to lead back into these shallow areas. Fish will hold up and stop at these as they slowly make their progression back into the spawning flats. Basically, the fish are looking for a flat area that's somewhat protected from wind, um, that may be protected from human activity and whatnot, but look for things that are going to stop them along this migration route. It could be something that's man-made, like a road or possibly a bridge, could be a dock, or it could be something that's natural, like a brush pile, a stump, maybe a transition of rock to muck transition, or sand to rock, things like that. So the fish, I'm going to zoom out a little bit. The fish basically were staged at these points when the water was in the low 50s. These points here, here, and here. And now they're starting to filter back into the coves as that water warms through the 50s into the 60s. As you get into the mid 60s, you're definitely going to have some fish on beds at that point. But remember, not all fish spawn at the exact same time. So if I'm fishing this cove, for instance, and I find fish back here on beds, and maybe I can't catch them, or maybe philosophically I don't like fishing for fish on beds, just back off a little bit, and there's going to be fish staged out here that haven't quite moved up yet. Again, look for something like a stop sign, something that's going to stop them. Again, a stump, a piece of structure, something like that. A boat ramp even is a good structure that'll stop them. So basically, you're starting out at these points when the water's in the 50s, and you're going to try to follow the migration back in. Now this arm in itself, if I zoom back out, this is two arms with lots of little coves, so I can try to repeat this pattern over and over and over. I could probably spend an entire day just fishing this one arm here. I probably wouldn't even get to this arm because it could take all day to really pick through all the fish just in this arm. Now in a natural lake, things are a little different. I'm going to zoom out, go up to a lake in Madison, Wisconsin. Natural lakes tend to not have as many points, so it's not as obvious. Reservoirs, very obvious, very predictable areas where fish are going to stage and where they're going to migrate. So let's start to zoom in here. Again, north side of the lake is going to warm faster, so these fish will be into the spawning grounds maybe a week to 2 or even 3 weeks sooner than the fish down at this part of the lake. I'm not saying that every fish in the lake is going to spawn up here. That is not true. Fish will spawn all around this entire lake, but this north side they're going to spawn first. just simply because it's warmer. So as I zoom in, here would be a good staging area. So when the water is in the low 50s, high 40s, but once we start to move into the 50s, fish are going to start to spread out. And a very typical place, if I zoom in more, you'll see this is a 10-foot shallow flat. So there could be fish up on here. And they're going to follow migration routes into these shallow areas. They might follow this break line here. I don't know what's under the water here, so you might want to watch for weed lines or gravel. But these fish are going to start going from the staging area and filtering out and spreading out into this entire region to spawn. They're not all going to spawn, let's say, in this back area. Back here, they are going to spread out. The fish don't want to be on top of each other, right next to each other spawning, so they will spread out. On a natural lake like this, it's a little bit harder to find those migration routes than in a reservoir. Reservoirs are much easier. So just time on the water and experience is going to help you find subtle boulders that are under the water here, or again, maybe some homeowners' docks. I see there's a boat ramp right here, so maybe that boat ramp would be a holding place. They're probably not going to spawn on the boat ramp. There's too much human activity, but that could be a holding spot just for maybe an hour. So you're looking for, just kind of draw the line from the early pre-spawn staging area to where they're going to want to get to, and try to intercept those fish somewhere in between. I hope this helps. Be sure to hit subscribe.